Okay, well, I have a couple minutes after the hour. We want to get going. So welcome to our session again, The Art of Test Security, Know Thy Enemy. I'm pleased to introduce today's presenter, Dr. David Foster. He is Caveon CEO and chairperson of the Caveon Board of Directors. I don't know how many of you know Dave. He is energetic and enthusiastic and passionate about this subject. He's always thinking and creating new innovative ways to protect tests. It really is something that he loves doing. It's not just a job. In my experience with Dave, when he speaks, you can just see it in his eyes. This is just something that's very, very important to him. He's a recognized luminary in the industry. He holds a PhD in experimental psychology and completed a postdoc in psychobiology. And he's been in the industry for over 35 years and certainly doesn't show any signs of slowing down anytime soon. He's constantly thinking and changing and innovating. So it should be a good session for you today. So I will go ahead and turn the time over to Dr. Foster.
Thanks, Rochelle. You can hear me okay, right?
Yes, I sure can.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the kind words. And welcome to all of you on the call today. I sincerely hope this will be useful information. The title of the topic is The Art of Test Security, Know Thy Enemy. We're gonna talk about knowing who the enemy is, but also what to do about thy enemy. This is kind of the webinar goals, to learn the security process. Who are the enemies or the threats to the program? How to create some solutions, or at least how to get started on that. How to evaluate the solutions, whether they're working or not, and then when to repeat the process. I have a goal to complete my part of this at 10 minutes to go in the hour, so that you have some time to ask some questions, and hopefully I can answer them. I want to apologize in advance to meet that goal. I may move quickly through some topics. If I do that, please, you can clarify with some questions at the end. The test security process, I put it all on one slide. We're going to go over this during the hour. This is our main agenda. So these are steps. It's a process. We're going to talk about the threats. We're going to talk about solutions. We're going to evaluate the solutions and then start the process over again. That's the security process. I do want to mention one thing before moving from this slide, is make sure we know what we're protecting with this process. There's one primary asset that we're protecting, in my opinion, and there are many secondary assets like program reputation, the test content, but the main asset we are protecting is the usefulness of test scores, which relates directly to validity. And if you don't have great security, validity suffers, maybe is destroyed. I don't know, but remember that the main thing is when those test scores are produced, that they are trusted and useful. Next slide, please. I want to talk just a little bit about the universality of the security process. I've learned much about test security by looking at security in other areas. Transportation, we all go through that when we fly, and our cars are very well protected with airbags and good brakes and other new systems these days. Law enforcement to protect communities, the military to protect our borders, and home protection. We have locks on windows and doors. Our personal health, we take care of ourselves to protect us from viruses and other kinds that exist out there. A simple thing like pest control. We don't want bugs in our house, spiders and wasps and who knows what else. And so we take steps. IT systems, on our smartphone, we have passwords. We change them often, and it's important to us on our tablets and our desktops and laptops. So we take an interest in those and many more. You could probably think of many besides these. I'm thinking of banks, how they protect money. And so each of these follow the same security process, except the only difference is the asset they're protecting is not the usefulness of test scores. It's something else. And we're involved with all of these, and we're involved with the test security process as well. Next slide, please. In honor of Halloween, I use this spooky slide to talk about threats. The real danger. These are, and we'll give lots of examples of threats. So there are people behind threats. These are threats that will attempt to harm your test program. And there are two types of individuals behind the threats: cheaters and thieves. And they have different motives, and we should treat them differently in the security process. So we've broken up the threats by cheating threats and piracy or stealing or theft threats. So cheaters, and you should understand the motive. So cheaters are those individuals who try to increase test scores by inappropriate and perhaps illegal ways. Their whole goal is to make scores higher than they should be. That's what we call a cheater. A thief is probably clearer. Individuals who simply steal, harvest, capture, pirate test content. And their reasons are to usually gain some money, perhaps associations, but they have other motives, and they're not particularly interested in personally having higher test scores. Next page. So this relates to the protection of assets, but what harm can they do? Obviously, cheating and theft of content is not a victimless crime in any sense. The harm they can do: scores can't be trusted. That's, I think, the biggest harm, as I stated. Poor decisions will be made on those scores. Loss of program credibility. Expense to replace tests. Expense of legal or civil action, and harm to the public that depends on the usefulness of scores. So keep that in mind as we talk about the threats and the solutions. And I'm sure you know all of this, and maybe have even personally experienced the kinds of harm that these types of fraud can do. Next, please. So there are 7 cheating threats. Let me just go through one at a time, or maybe more than one. Okay, one at a time, although 3 are up. Oh, now we have 1. I just want to make sure you understand when you look through. We're not going to spend time specifically on these, but using pre-knowledge of test content is a way to cheat that's very hard to detect. Number 2, someone can help you during the test, a teacher, instructor, or a confederate who's speaking to you through a two-way radio. The third one, using inappropriate aids, cheat sheets, things written on your shoes or your hands or erasers and such. We're familiar with those. Fourth one, using a proxy test taker. That could be a friend or it could be a professional service. Next one. Not common, but it's possible to hack into databases to change a score from a low one to a high one. Next. Rules, test administration rules could be manipulated. A teacher, for example, in a K-12 testing situation can give more time for example, for a person to take test. Instead of an hour, they can give an hour and a half. Or they can provide assistance during the exam in different ways, or change answer sheets afterwards. All of it would be violations of test administration rules. And the last one, this is the old standby. Maybe we've all done something like this: is copy answer from someone else, usually a friend, in a taking a test from someone else. So that's the old one, been around a long time, and it's less of a problem today than it was. Now let's go to the seven. There are seven categories of theft threats as well. So first one, when test files get downloaded to a test administration server, they may be vulnerable to capture. Any administrator of that server may be able to get them, and if they're not properly encrypted, then obviously the files are available. Second one, this may be one of the most common today, or at least it's, but just pulling out a camera or having a hidden camera and capturing the content. Very difficult one to deal with. Third one, you could steal a test session electronically by connecting the testing workstation to another workstation through a cable and capturing the entire test session electronically, kind of like when you record a football game or something on a TiVo-like device. The fourth one, an old standby, send in people to memorize the test content, and then they recall that content to a website usually. Next one. Recording the test verbally. This could happen a couple of ways. You can write the test questions on a piece of paper, or record the question into a hidden microphone. Next one. Again, manipulation of test administration rules. I'll give an example of retake. You may not get all the information the first time you take a test, and so you retake the test, often in violation of retake rules. Keep taking them immediately and capture more information that way. That's not a great example. I should have a better one handy, but you get the point. Number 7, you could obtain content from a testing program employee or contractor who has access to the content. That happens from time to time. It's not very common. These 7 stealing threats and the 7 cheating threats are categories. For each one of them, there are many different styles of doing them. But you can attack and create solutions that attack the category and not individual methods. It's probably more efficient and effective. Okay, next slide, please. So it's important because of limited resources, and I'll talk more about that, to deal with or create solutions for your most important threats, those that are more likely to occur and more likely to cause a lot of damage. And just one that would be obviously low risk is one person copying from another person. It probably happens. It's less likely today, and the amount of damage is small compared to other threats. But you need to evaluate the risk and rank order a subset of those threats to focus on. And we at Caveon created a free risk assessment that is tuned to these threats that you saw. And I'm going to ask, you can see the link there. I'm going to ask Rochelle to show that to you right now.
Yeah, so this is available just on our caveon.com/risk assessment. And you can see here the threats are all listed in a row, and you can just kind of come through the site and say, okay, I think stealing actual test files, from the server or booklets is maybe a 2. The damage that could do is a 3. Stealing questions through digital or photography, maybe that's a 3 for your program and a 3 for damage. So you can just go down the list and very easily click on based on your individual program and your thoughts on it, and then you fill out your information here and go ahead and click send. So we'll make sure to include that link in the email that I will send to you after the session.
Thanks, Rochelle. When she brings back the slide deck, I want to show you the report that this particular exercise produces. And so it's on the next slide. So these are, for the threat risk analysis, these are, this is one possible outcome, and it ranks them by the mathematics, the calculation of that risk. So for this, in this case, stealing questions through digital, still or video photography was the top ranked with a 9. The next one down, manipulation of test administration rules, with the 6. And you would know what these are specifically because you have either completed this or a colleague did. On the cheating side, you can see what's a 6 and use of inappropriate or non-authorized. So, and then the third one, using pre-knowledge of test content. So this one you would have 5, maybe 6 to focus on, and the other 8 or 9 you would and could reasonably ignore or at least devote minimal resources to. You want to take care of your bigger problems first. If a bear or a dog are attacking you at the same time, you pay attention to the bear and let the dog do whatever it wants to do. I know that you'd probably never be in that situation. It's just a lame analogy. So we're going to do kind of just a little brief feeling for how this works with a couple of poll questions. So please answer these, and I'll let Rochelle take over here.
Yeah, so the first one, we'd like you to rate the cheating threat. So pick the one that is most concerning to you at this time. And this is kind of a bummer. We could only list 5 in GoToWebinar, so we don't have all 7 for you, but we picked 5. So out of the 5 we've listed, please remember there are others, but these are the ones we were limited to for this poll. So we'll let you go ahead and vote. I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. Okay. 2 more seconds. Get your last votes. Okay, we'll go ahead and share those results.
Okay, Rochelle, let me, so this was just meant to give you a feeling for how the process of rating and ranking would occur. Obviously, there are some differences here, with pre-knowledge being the most concerning one, and then inappropriate test aids. Copying answers is smaller as are the likelihood of a proxy test taker colluding with an expert. So I think it's just a feeling here, and you can get a more complete experience by using all the threats and running your own risk analysis or using our tool. Next one is one for theft.
Yeah, so same situation. Go ahead and take a look at the theft threats and see which one you feel is most a concern for you at this time. And again, we only were able to list 5, unfortunately. Okay, I see that about half of you have voted. Go ahead and get your votes in. We'll give you a few more seconds. Okay, looks like we have most of you. We'll go ahead and close that and share those results.
Okay, so for this one, it looks like the threat of using cameras during a test, which is very smart because cameras are getting smaller. They're hidden. I'll say they're impossible to detect. And memorizing the test content. Okay, those are. I mean, I hope you get the feeling for now. I prefer an informal risk analysis where it doesn't get terribly mathematic or statistical, but you're welcome to take those threats and do a more thorough study if you wish. I think you'll probably discover the major threats through even the informal one as well. Okay. Rochelle, next slide. Are you there?
I am. Can you not see?
I am seeing the initial slide of the slide deck.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Well, let me.
Not even the initial slide, but.
Okay, let me just try and reload it here. Sometimes pulls freeze us up.
So as I said, it's smart to focus on solutions on the major threats. Your resources are never large, and in fact, will almost always be less than what you need. And sometimes they're not even budgeted in some programs. And so the threats that pose the highest risk should be dealt with first. When you're dealing with them, you need to create effective and efficient solutions. And so we're now going to turn our attention to the solutions. Next slide. So this is how we protect. What's nice about this, they're in step number 2, which is protecting your assets against those threats. There are only 3 types of solutions. First one is prevention. That simply means, very literally, you do not allow the threat to be effective. The second one is deterrence. And by the way, I'm going to spend a little time on each one of these. Deterrence is something used rarely today, at least used rarely in a systematic part of a process like this. But basically, you do whatever you can do to convince the test taker and other people out there that would steal to not want to do those things. You are creating a psychological effect. You're persuading, cajoling, threatening, whatever you need to do so that the people decide it's not worth it. That's deterrence, and it's not used very often. I mean, indirectly, there's deterrent effect when you do other types of solutions, when you throw up a proctor, that has a deterrent effect, of course. But this means specific procedures to deter people. Next one there. The third one is detection. That is detecting a threat in process, which is called a breach, but detecting a threat in progress and then reacting to it. I have to add the reaction to it. You should never call it prevention, deterrence, and detection, because detection is useless unless you have a planned and virtually immediate reaction to discovery. And we'll show those very clear examples of that on the next few slides. So let's start with prevention. The primary goal is to prevent or stop the threat from even becoming a breach. And a breach is where it's actually causing you damage. So if you need to prevent the threat from becoming a breach. It should say becoming, sorry, a little bit of a typo there. And I'm going to give you there's a secondary goal, certainly, and deterrence. Once you do something like this, people are going to think, what's the use? I can't do it anyway. So there is a minor or secondary deterrent effect. but the primary goal is to prevent it. So let's look at some examples that are not in testing. These are in some of the other securities. So here's a lock on something. That's just meant to stop people from getting in. Next one. Those are high walls. They can't be scaled. I mean, you may not be able to make a ladder big enough. So you prevented that type of. Next one. Helmet protects hurting your head. Someone hurting your head. Obvious prevention. Next one. Those might prevent. You could say, nah, you could go over that, but I think that kind of razor wire is meant as a prevention rather than a deterrent, but it could serve both. Next one. Okay, this is bulletproof glass. It prevents bullets from going through it. Next one. This says, if you can't read it, I got my flu shot. Prevents viruses, flu virus, from taking effect. Those are all non-testing related prevention techniques. Now, these are prevention one, and sorry, they're not showing one at a time, but I'll start at the top or top left. You can buy these cardboard. For those of you that were concerned about, sorry, no. If any of you are concerned about copying from a neighbor, you could pick up these cardboards dividers to prevent such copying. The next one to the right is an example of a multiple choice question that does not show all the content. This is called a discrete option multiple choice, and I've spoken about it a number of times. This is what a test taker would see. If they had a camera, they'd be able to take a picture of the stem and the word Japan. And they may get another option and see another word. But it is hard to, it prevents capture of the complete item and therefore makes cheating and theft difficult. The one down on the bottom left is simply a demonstration of user access controls. For some of our technology, we use two-factor authentication. So you put the email and password, your email and password here, and if it's not on a device that the system knows, it might send a code to your smartphone that you need to then put in. So better access is a preventative measure. And the final one on the bottom right is a encryption. It's a icon for encryption. When you encrypt data and test content, it's a preventative measure to obviously not let people see the content. They'll just see gibberish. Okay, those are prevention techniques, and I know you can come up with others. It doesn't take long to come up with a method of prevention. They're not used very often, but as Benjamin Franklin said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of probably anything else you can do. Next slide, please. Okay, deterrence. Primary goal, as I've mentioned, make the persons behind the threat quit their plans. This is primarily communication. Those persons have to know your plans, what you're doing, in order to decide what they need to do. And so much of these that you'll see, these examples, non-testing and in the testing world, are communication-based. So let's see some examples. Non-test. Okay, sorry. A little bit more on the psychological effects. So this is what the communication contains: knowledge of the likelihood of getting caught and of punishments that would be meted out. Just a simple knowledge that cheating and theft are inappropriate and socially harmful and bad things to do. The third is having them agree to not cheat and to not disclose content. Once they sign an agreement, they They commit. It's a commitment. And it serves as a basis for you to take action as well. And the final one is they could understand, you could teach them the damage that cheating causes to them. It says others, but and to their personal progress and the value of their own credentials. And more people cheat, the less value those credentials and those scores are. So this kind of information is communicated. Here's some non-testing examples. Obvious one, right? Scarlet fever here. Make you want to turn and go the other way. Next one. Same effect. Beware of the dog. Even if you don't see the dog, the sign tells you enough. Next one. Okay, if you go too fast, you may tip over like this truck. Okay? This is by a railway crossing. Stop, look, and listen. Beware of trains. They're warning you to take steps and be more careful. Next one. Okay, this is what will happen to you if you get caught shoplifting. And finally, this on any bottle would indicate poison and to stay away. Probably anywhere else this is displayed except at Halloween time would be a definite warning. So words, images can communicate. Now there's one more. No, sorry, there isn't. Let's go to some testing ones. This is some very creative use. This is just simply a rule. This picture bothers me for some reason, probably bothers you too. But it's a rule that you want to face forward. Next one. Test-taking agreements, whether they take place when a person registers for a program or when they schedule for an exam or when they, just before the exam begins. They're a binding agreement and they will have a deterrent effect. Next one. I couldn't find, well, I found one. Let's go to the next one. Again, the rules, post the rules. Here's one. Let's see if I'm going to read it. Cheating is punishable under the, I think it's military and other applicable laws. Test answer sheets are subject to test security analysis. So it tells you the rules. No, sorry. It just tells you the punishment and what might happen in terms of analysis. So those are two very, very good communications as well. And one more. I like this one. GMAC. That's the Graduate Admissions Management Admissions Council. Sorry. Runs the GMAT, and years ago they found a website selling their content. They got a judgment against that website that gave them the domain name, and they posted this on that website. And when people went to scoretop.com to get GMAT questions, they had this message which said, warning, if you're looking for real GMAT exam questions, think again. It tells them it was shut down. It tells them how much the Graduate Management Admissions Council takes cheating seriously, and so it's a great message specifically to people trying to go find test questions on the web. Next slide. Okay, detection/reaction. So the point of this is to put something in place for the threats that may turn into breaches, to detect the breach and detect it just as quickly as possible so you can do something about it. And when we go over the examples, I hope you think of that for each case of detection, that there is an obvious reaction. No sensible person puts a detection system in place without any idea of what they'll do when something is detected. This also has, if you publicize what you're doing, this has a deterrent effect. Just like that, that last slide that shows on the wall, the sign saying your test score, your test results are going to be subject to analysis. If you communicate, it will have also a deterrent effect. But the main point here is to detect a breach and then stop it, limit damage. So let's see some non-testing related ones. Okay, you probably have all gone through these. A body scanner at an airport. And you all, maybe I have experienced what happens if they think they see something. They will then wand you or set you aside or do something else. Their reaction is immediate. Next one. Okay, so telescopes. They're looking for something in the sky. I don't know if these particular telescopes would detect an asteroid that may be coming too close to the Earth or an alien invasion. If you've seen the movies, though, you know any hint of an alien invasion mobilizes the entire world. So the reaction is immediate to something strange that might appear on this. Or maybe this is just looking for what's happening out there. I don't know. Okay, and this one, this is a dying of money. That's DYE, dying of money that was stolen with the die pack that's in the container the money's in. Now it also damaged it so that the money can't be used, but it's just meant to detect the use of the money. If dyed bills are if someone tries to spend them, then detect the thief, and authorities can be called in. Next one. Okay, I don't know if you've seen the movie recently. It's a very good movie called Megan Levy, and it's just about this. In fact, I don't think this was shot, but this is a explosives detection dog looking for unexploded devices and detecting them. And then what happens if the dog detects something? What they go into they protect themselves, and they also take care of the bomb. Next one. This is what new cars today see with their detection systems that are built in. They detect obstacles and often without you having to do anything. They have built-in systems that immediately react, and they stop your car or swerve your car or do something so it doesn't collide with these obstacles. That's such a clear example of how detection should work. Next slide. Okay, these are those that occur in testing. This is an icon representing Trojan horse items. These are items that you can embed in a test. If you suspect that an answer key has been stolen, you can embed items in a test that are built to detect whether a person is using the stolen key. They're called Trojan horse items, and there are other types of items you can put in a test to detect other kinds of fraud. A test can easily accomplish its testing purpose, as well as help you to discover who's perpetrating some fraud during your test. Next one. Okay, you may not be able to read this very well. This is these are decisions you can make about if you find a image of an item on the web or people talking about an item on the web. You can use you can find out, and this it calls them deliveries, but you can find out which test administration person and event actually stole that item. There are very good visual techniques and item-based techniques that can help you detect thieves. And once you do, you can take immediate action because you have all the evidence right in front of you. Next slide. This is a data forensics result showing that one test result has much more aberrants or strange patterns than another. And that the strangeness of that pattern may indicate fraud of some sort and action you could take. Next. Web monitoring can find people selling content. This is an actual website called Actual Tests, and their content is surprisingly accurate. So you need to search for these kinds of websites and that content, and then when you find them, shut them down if you can, or make changes to your program so that these people can't steal it. The next one. This is an individual proctoring, looks like a military-based exam, maybe a exam for recruits, but a proctor is I assign a proctor mainly to the detection system, although generally with technology that they have to deal with these days, they're probably not as effective as they used to be. So let's go to the next slide.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and launch our last poll for the session. So we're wondering if you're worried that someone might pull out a camera and take a picture of your test, which category would work best? Would it be prevention, where you eliminate the possibility that cameras are used during the test? Deterrence, where you make test takers not want to use them? What's that?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but have them just choose one.
Okay, go ahead and just choose one. And the last one, detection. Would you detect the camera use and respond immediately with a sanction? We have about half of the votes in. Okay, 3 more seconds. Okay, we'll go ahead and share those results.
Sorry, I was on mute. It was a trick question, and I only let you pick one, and you picked the one you thought might have the most effect. The best practice here is to use all of them. However, right? So, and some of you believe they'll all work, and I believe they'll all work to some degree. I personally, at this point, don't know which one would be most effective. The problem with prevention is those cameras, they can put a camera on a contact lens today. I mean, it's going to get worse and worse, the ability to prevent. But you can prevent with items and design of your tests instead of some tool to stop cameras from working. Okay, but it was just meant to say I think you're all right here. I would use them all. In fact, whatever threat I'm looking at, I would try to consider all of these: prevention, deterrence, and detection with an immediate response. I would try to use them all for every single major threat that you have. Okay, back to the slide, please, Rochelle. Okay, step 3, and I had 3 or 4 minutes, which is I'm on time here. Step 3, evaluate your solutions. Once you've been doing this and what you thought was your best solutions, and you can get advice from internal to your program, external to your program, you can put these in place. You should have some way to measure their effectiveness, such as some forensics result that showed likelihood of different kinds of fraud, and you should be able to see those data forensics metrics or any other metrics you have decrease with the effectiveness of your solutions. Over time, as you watch these, you should improve or replace them fairly liberally, finding something that works better, perhaps, than something you had in place. Continue to do that for those main threats that you identified. That's an ongoing process of this test security process. So next slide, please. And the last step is start over. And this means start over from step 1, where you rank the threats, because new threats emerge. It may be a different list next year. And then threats that you rated as low now may have more risk. You have dealt with some of the bigger ones. People will now start using other methods. And so you need to make sure that those threats that you probably ignore a bit or minimally deal with aren't now more of a concern. And threats that you dealt with effectively may need less attention. Your deterrent efforts may work on those. So the benefits. What are the benefits from following the proper security process? Well, you can come up with these as I can, but trust in your test scores, not just from you, but the test takers, the users of the test scores, society. Less expense dealing with breaches. You may not even have many breaches. I know many of our clients, they put in they don't have any. They don't have breaches. And the tendency, of course, is to relax. You don't need to relax when that happens. You just need to continue to monitor. Less expense replacing items and tests. Stronger program reputation. And you have a program that cheaters and thieves avoid. Next slide. I think, go back to it's okay. Next slide, Rochelle. No, missing one. I think. Go back one.
Conclusion.
Yeah, I just want to finish with this one. Worry less, sleep better. Good benefits to you. And by the way, you should do this process as it said on the previous slide. I would suggest once a year, once every 18 months. Redo the process. It's not hard to do, and these benefits will occur. And I think that's the end of my slide. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Yeah, we have had a few questions come in. So let me. Okay, so one person would like to know if you can explain how an exam could be stolen electronically.
Sure. Desktops and even some laptops they have a port on the back that would allow another monitor and even another computer to be connected. You could take, and it is virtually impossible to detect the use of that port. That cable could go into the next room. The person could take the test normally. Nobody would see any difference. This would be a difficult threat to carry out at a testing center unless the testing center is carrying it out itself. And there are many testing centers that have been known to do those kinds of things. So that's how it's done. It's fairly straightforward, easy to do. Some tablets, smartphones don't have the proper ports for that and are probably more secure.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dave. There's also a question, if I can't afford to do all three, prevention, detection, deterrence, and respond, how should I prioritize?
That's you know what, I honestly, any of those three methods, the detection method will require a response. And if you can't afford the response, then it doesn't make any sense to detect. Deterrent is probably the cheapest to use because it's communication. Strong, forceful, consistent, often communication. Prevention. There are many interesting and unique prevention systems out there that some of which may even save you money, at least compared to dealing with breaches. I can't say for sure based on your program. I'd be happy to, if you contact us and tell me more about your program, I'd be happy to give you a bit more specific advice.
Okay, another question. Are you able to take away a personal item if you suspect someone has used it to copy the test, photograph the test?
You know, that's a kind of a legal question. I'm not going to give you any legal advice here, but I believe the answer lies in the fact of how you've created your agreements with test takers. I believe if the agreement, they agree to allow you to do that, if certain things happen, then I think you have the right. But you need to check with a lawyer on that. It's certainly tough if you don't have that in place. I'm not sure you can take it away, but I'm sure people have too.
Okay, great. Someone else is wondering, are we seeing cheating increasing in test programs, or decreasing, or staying about the same?
Okay, I'm relying on a lot of years of experience. I would have to say some threats have decreased, certainly. Others have increased. Today, I can't say for sure we're better off than we were 10 years ago. New threats and a bit of a lack of attention to security has allowed them to be more effective. In some programs, I've seen threats completely vanish, or sorry, threats never vanish, but breaches vanish, and threats effectively dealt with. So program by program, it definitely works. Overall in the industry, I think we're still under a lot of pressure.
Okay, another question. What is the Trojan horse question, and how are they implemented within an exam?
Okay, a Trojan horse item is expects a stolen key. The key has been stolen. Everybody knows the answer to question 12 is C. So what you do is you rework question 12 and keep C as the same wording and the same position as it was, but the key now is slightly different and is probably something like B or A. So you detect people picking. It's Trojan horse because you've inserted it into your test. They don't know it's a Trojan horse item, and it can tell that they are picking. You don't need very many of them either to show that someone's using a stolen key. They're picking the answers they shouldn't pick on a very regular basis. If they had proper knowledge, they wouldn't be drawn to the keyed response. And they're unscored, by the way, so they're not involved with the scoring of the exam at all.
Okay, thanks, Dave. How often should someone conduct a risk analysis?
Okay, and by the way, the language is a threat risk analysis, and it wasn't clear in my presentations. Sorry, you're evaluating the risk of threats. So people should conduct a threat risk analysis, I think, once a year. It's easy to do, quick. So if nothing changes, it doesn't affect your solutions. But I would do it once a year. And use 3 or 4 of your. Use yourself and 3 or 4 people that know about the test and have a stake in it, maybe even more, stakeholders and such. So at least once a year.
Okay, thank you. Oh, we just got one more question in. Oh no, I'm sorry, just a comment. So that's all the questions that we have had come in. If you have any last questions, enter them quickly. If you think of a question after we end the session today, feel free to email me. You have my email address from the invite, and I will triage that out to Dave or whoever is the most appropriate one to answer, and we'll get you an answer back. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions, so we'll go ahead and close today. Give you a couple minutes back. So we just want to thank you for attending the session today, especially those new visitors who have not been on a webinar with us before. We know we met some of you at the ICE conference last week, and I'm glad to see you participating today. We will probably not have a webinar again until January. We usually try and take December. People are busy with travel and such, so we wish you a very happy holiday season, and we will see you again for our webinar in January. And also thank you to Dave as our presenter today. He did a fantastic job, and we hope you found it helpful.
Thanks, Rochelle. Thanks to all of you.
Have a great day, everyone.